Fatima, you gotta put it down.
Wait, what?
You gotta put the volume down. It's way too low. It's way, way too low.
Are you ready? All right, let's go to.
All right, guys. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. We're gonna start today, Bismillah, and I'm gonna end right on time at 5:15. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Everybody hear me properly?
Yep.
Cool. All right. So if you could just mute yourselves for now, and then unmute yourself if you have any questions. If I could just ask everybody to go on mute. And I'm gonna go ahead and share screen. All right, cool. I'll go ahead and present. Can all you guys see?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, cool. All right, so I'll go ahead and jump right in. So today I'm going to talk about the Scrum team. So if you guys remember yesterday we talked about this entire process and this concept of the Scrum team, and like what Scrum is all about. If you guys remember, Scrum is very similar, or it's a type of methodology. It's similar to, it's an agile methodology, a flexible methodology of developing software, specifically not hardware, but just software, whether that's a website, whether that's like an app or anything like that. So we're going to kind of jump into that a little bit more deeper today. All right, so this is kind of like the Scrum framework at a glance. Don't have a heart attack. It looks kind of crazy. I'm going to walk you through, each one of these in our classes and stuff. So right now, we're going to talk about the actual Scrum team, and that's going to be the focus of it. So in a Scrum team, typically you have the product owner, you have a Scrum master, and you have team members. And I'm going to go into depth on each one of these today. So again, you have the product owner, team member, and Scrum master. That kind of, this illustration kind of, it'll ring a bell later on when I'm talking about it. It'll make a lot, this little picture here, it'll make a lot of sense really soon in terms of the structure. Okay, and this is how they kind of look like in real life. So if you ever go to a place like eBay or wherever you're working at, typically you're having a stand-up meeting and people are, kind of getting together. All right. Cool. Can I have everybody mute their phones? Just mute your lines. So for the Scrum team, we'll start off with, and these are the Scrum roles. Again, these are just kind of a little bit more overarching view. So the team is not like, this is the team, the product owner, the Scrum master, and the other team members like the developers, etc. But outside of that, if you guys look, there's these other members. They're essentially, whoops, what just happened? Sorry. They're these. What's going on? Sorry. What's going on? Give me 1 second. Sorry. Pointer. Okay. Sorry, I don't know why it keeps doing that. Anyways, I have to hit escape. Sorry. 1 second. Present. Technical difficulties here. Cool. So outside, you guys can see on the very top, there's a business owner. That business owner is like the guy who has no technology experience. He's some big executive at a company like Walmart, or somebody at like somebody on the business side. It could be like a salesperson. It could be like somebody that's like totally not part of a technology team, and they'll have an idea. They might be a business owner for if it's Walmart.com, they might be the business or what do you buy at Walmart? Groceries. So they might be the business owner for groceries on Walmart.com. So if that was the case, then they might have a crazy idea like, hey, look, let's offer one day delivery for groceries. So he'll come and he'll like at a really high level, he'll be like, I want you guys to deliver some kind of like website or web page to do like grocery delivery. So he'll throw that over to your team. Your Scrum team, you're the Scrum Master of it. You're the Scrum Master guy on the bottom left, right? The product owner, he's going to kind of like talk to the business owner. He's the guy that's talking to the business owner, and he's the guy that's kind of like seeing, does it even make sense? Like, does a crazy idea that guy has, does it make sense? If it makes sense, he's going to figure out all the stuff that he wants to do on that website. And then he's going to meet with you, and you guys are going to come up with the actual timeline and plan to do that. All right. And the developer is obviously going to help you get there. So, and this is another little graphic of the Scrum Rolls. So the product owner, this is what we're going to jump into. Time check. We got about 10 minutes. So product owner. The product owner is somebody that, I'm going to pick on somebody. Bilal. Bilal, can you read each one of these items on this slide? You'll have to unmute yourself. Well, how about Mika, could you read the slide right here for everyone?
Yeah, he's responsible for the products, for the product success. He owns the product on behalf of business owners, maintains stakeholders' vision while developing the product, cares about users' needs and business goals, guide the product in the correct direction, and a good team player, collaborates with the development team and stakeholders.
Yep. So in a nutshell, really, like this person's kind of like the main kind of source of anything that's going to go on the website. Any idea, anything that is going to go touch the website, it has to go through him. So when they say product owner, it's like whatever the product is, it doesn't have to be a physical product. It could be literally like a section of the website. Like Kamala, for example, imagine in your example of like there's going to be like a children's madrasa or a children's school. If that school has a website, each page of the website might have a product owner. So the page for registration might have a product owner. So anything that goes on the registration page will go through this guy. He's the guy that's going to come up with anything from colors, fonts, ideas, whatever. He's going to own it, quote unquote. He's going to take full ownership of it. All right, I'm going to go to the next slide. Okay, so the next slide, product owner. Bilal, looks like we got you back. Can you hear?
Okay. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, perfect. Do you want to go ahead and read this slide?
Okay, product owner, management of backlog, analysis of product vision, modulating development team, coordination with Scrum Master.
Perfect. Yep. So so that's really it in a nutshell. These are the responsibilities of the product owner that he's doing. You're the project manager. You're the quote unquote Scrum Master. So you're not this guy. So the product owner when he gets all these ideas he has, he's gonna do these. Oops, my bad. He's gonna do these activities, and this is basically what he does all day long. He's managing a backlog of ideas. He's coordinating with you. You're the Scrum Master. He's coordinating timelines and trying to get more organized by working with you. He's having an analysis of his product vision, meaning he's thinking of like the next 2 months, the next 3 months, what he wants like in the future for his website or page or whatever. And the last thing he's doing is he's working with the development team. Development team is another word for like the engineers, the actual people that are going to be coding all the work. So he works directly with them. And there's another part it doesn't show here. He also works with designers. So that's really the product owner. This kind of summarizes it. So he's the voice of the customer, or he's the voice of the business owner, whoever. He owns the value of whatever goes on the page. He gathers feedback from customers and things like that. And he's making big decisions. Don't forget, you, the Scrum Master, are not making too many decisions. You're always kind of like option 1, option 2, and somebody else decides. But you're just the organizer. It's kind of like, I don't like to say this. I know this sounds kind of bad, but it's kind of like the product owner is like the big boss, the big CEO, right, of that web page, and you're kind of like the organizer, or the almost like a secretary. I don't like using the word secretary because you're way more than a secretary, but you kind of get the idea, right? So like you're not making those decisions. Okay, the delivery team. These are the team members. These are these guys, right? The engineers, the developers, the QA people that are going to be testing the code, etc. So that's just part of it. So these guys during the Scrum stuff, they're constantly looking at what the product owner wants to do and giving him feedback, like, hey, this is crazy, we're not going to do this, or hey, sure, we could do this, but it's going to take us this much time, right? That's kind of like, and then they're coding. Then you got these guys that are really not really part of your team, but they're pretty essential. They're the designers. So when the product owner has this idea of, hey, look, let's make this button, the designer is going to actually design the button. And he's going to work with the product owner to see how it looks like the graphic design, right? There's different type of designers. You don't need to know this. This is like, outside of your scope. But later on, I could always go into this in terms of like what they do. And they do a lot of cool things like colors, font, size, right? They think of like how buttons will interact and when you click it on an app versus a tablet versus a website. That's what designers do. They have a pretty fun job. Kind of wish I was a designer sometimes. And then you got the iterative process. So just like you guys are going through a cadence, every 2 weeks, designers also every 2 weeks, they're constantly doing this process. So they're researching users. So they actually go talk to customers, get their feedback. Then they come up with designs. Then they kind of like build their designs, and then they show it to like they'll show up to your meeting and they'll show your Scrum team. Hey, look, guys, based on what you guys told me, this is the design. And that's what designers do. All right, and go to the next slide. Oops, what's going on, man? Why is it going to the next slide? Wait a minute. Oops. Oh, there is no next slide. Okay. I know why. So we talked about team members. We talked about Scrum Master. We talked about product owner. I got about 90 seconds left. So I just want to wrap that up. And I want to wrap that up by going to this one slide, right around here. So again, this is the Scrum team. And the Scrum team fits in here. So if you look here, this is the team. And the team and the product owner, they're kind of like, working together. The product owner, this is a summary, he's creating this product backlog of ideas. He works with you, the Scrum Master, to kind of feed the ideas to the team. The team kind of like analyzes the idea, sees if it's, feasible technically. They might work with a designer to get some designs. They'll finally get the work to a good enough place where you could enter it into something called a sprint. And the sprint, like in sports, you can imagine like it's a really quick sprint. It's usually 1 to 4 weeks, typically 2 weeks. And during that sprint, that's when the developers are actually coding. And at the very end, you have the sprint review, which is like the Friday after like the 2 weeks. They'll show the team what they developed. Like, ooh, look at my crazy cool red button I developed, you know? When you click it, it does this. And then there's retrospective. They just talk about, you know, this is just a meeting where everybody kind of talks about how well the 2 weeks went. And then they got a tiny, we call it a SPI, or a shippable product increment. Meaning in 2 weeks, they developed the red button. The red button is what they ended with. Time check, it's 5:14. We got about 30 seconds left. How do people feel about this?
So I have a
Yeah, go ahead.
so the sprint, so-called sprint, is it like is it it's like a dry run basically before it all ends and before it comes to the end product?
That's a good question. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold that thought for a second. So guys, it's 5:15. The class is officially over. So everybody that's got to drop, go ahead and drop because the class is done. As you can see, I finished all my slides. So whoever doesn't have questions or needs to drop, go ahead and drop because the class is done. And I'll just take questions now.
Ali, real quick, UX and UI, is that front end, back end, or is that?
UX and UI, that is, so UX stands for user experience.
Yeah.
UI stands for like UI, I forgot exactly what it stands for, but it stands for user interface. And
So that would that be like, was that when they use that term front end and back end? I mean, I know front end is like more user experience, and then back end is more the code and development and all that.
Yep. So this is UI and UX refers only to front end. So they refer only to the designers that are basically doing the design. So they're coming up with the graphic design, and they typically have two or three different roles. There's one role they only come up with the language. They're like literally they're guys that they're just doing copy. There's others that are experienced designers. All they focus on is like when you click on this button, how does the motion happen? And then the third type of designer is like a UI designer. They're focused on the actual image. So whatever, like the colors, the font, the image, the logo, all that stuff, like the actual artistic graphic design, that's like the UI person. But at the end of the day, at companies, sometimes it's just like literally one designer and he does all of that. But it's all front end. It's not back end. And then I know, Amina, you had a question on the sprint. Your question was, can you say it one more time?
Sure. So the sprint is it just like a dry run before the big thing happens, or the big thing is actually produced? That's
a good question. Okay, let's pretend that 1 second. See if I could whiteboard this for you. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna pop up in a whiteboard and show you in real time. Well, anyways, I'll just answer it right now. So let's just pretend that the team is trying to make a shopping cart. Imagine it's a jewelry website and they're trying to make a shopping cart page. So if that shopping cart page is the thing that you're making in the 2 weeks in that sprint, everything before the sprint would be like basically all of the research, all of the designers that will come up with all the designs for it. And they're going to come up with the user stories, which is like the small pieces of work. Like, okay, one user story is we're going to add a button to the top. Another user story is we're going to add like a shopping cart button on the bottom. Third user story might be like, we're going to add a payments section so you could put in your credit card information. So all these user stories are all going to be created to track the work all the tiny bits of work that are gonna essentially make the page itself. And then that's done before the sprint. So before the sprint, the product owner, he's like writing all the user stories, working with developers to make sure that, it's feasible. And then when the sprint actually kicks off, those 2 weeks, the developers are actually coding the whole time, coding and testing. And at the end of the 2 weeks, they're gonna present to you guys how it looks, like in the actual live like code, like the actual page, how it looks like.
Okay.
And it's gonna start. I know it's kind of like it might not make too much sense now, but the more that we meet, the more it's gonna start kind of sinking in. Right now, I'm just giving you an overall framework. Later on, I'm gonna be deep diving into each one of these. Like, what does it mean to be writing user stories? What is a user story? What is a daily Scrum meeting? What's a grooming call? All of that stuff. The 5 main responsibilities for you, the Scrum Master, I'm gonna spend a lot of time kind of like going through each one of those. Kamala, do you have any questions?
No, I think I'm good. I mean, I guess my only question was the way that you explained it, that the agile format works. So then would you go back again if the product was not the way you wanted it to be, and you would do this whole format again? Is that correct? You'd keep repeating it till it got where you wanted it?
Yes, so that's a great question. Let me back up to, okay. So this screen right here, this concept. So imagine you took a concept like you're making a shopping cart. It went through this 2 week sprint, and after the 2 week sprint, they finish the work, so they review it. When they review it, remember I said that they're like essentially user stories. So let's just pretend that for the shopping cart, just to simplify everything, there were 3 user stories. One user story was adding credit card, like a credit card form. The second user story was showing like the jewelry products, like a summary of the jewelry products. And the third thing is like clicking submit, like the submit button to submit the order. So if those are the 3 user stories, the 3 pieces of work that are gonna like make the shopping cart, after the 2 weeks, the developers will actually present how it actually works. And if there's, not everything will be a failure. So the product owner might say, everything looks good except for the credit card part. The credit card part, I don't like that because we only have Visa. We should also have PayPal. So when they say that, either 2 things happen. Either the Scrum Master, you are going to look at the user story and say, wait a minute, you didn't include that in the user story. Since you didn't include that in the user story, it's not the developer's fault. So create a new user story, and in the next 2 weeks, you guys, do the PayPal thing. Or the second situation is the product owner says, hey, I really don't like the form that you made because I told you guys to make this payment form have a yellow background, and you guys made it blue. So you guys screwed up. And you're gonna look at it and be like, yeah, they legitimately screwed up. Like it clearly says in the user story, make it yellow, don't make it red, or whatever. So then you'll kick it back to the developers, and they'll have to actually fix that, just that specific user story. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And the idea of agile is that everything is tiny iterative development. So whatever they're doing such small bits of work that for them to fix it in the next 2 weeks, they could easily do that. They got to change a color from like red to yellow. They could do it the next 2 weeks, like no problem.
Right. It's just fixing the small parts that are wrong. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Any other questions? Amna, you're good?
Yes, I'm good.
Awesome. Okay, cool. All right, guys. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna share the link with you guys so you guys can review it. I'm created a YouTube channel, a private YouTube channel. I'm gonna try to upload the videos there if you ever want to review this. I recommend trying to review this at least one time really quick before tomorrow's session. And that's it. All right.
Okay, Assalamualaikum.
I'm like.